Hello, wonderful people. It is so nice to finally have talk to y'all in person virtually, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell y'all how I've conned y'all here. This is this is what I follow both of y'all, and I've been loosely following y'all's commentary and trying to I was for months now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get myself up to date on this discourse and what's going on. And finally I'm like, no, I don't think I can. I'm just going to ask Taylor and Kat to explain to me what is happening with the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni situation. Please teach me.
It just keeps going and going and going. Like there's never a day of rest.
Where did it start? Because just I haven't seen the last, but this is what I had seen. I saw there was all of the press run for The Last But Us. I saw everybody was kicking Blake Lively's back in about wearing too much floral, and I was like, okay, and then that was it. Then the next thing it was or who said first? Later on, they said they were kicking, they were shitting on Blake for the longest. Then Blake comes out and says that Justin Baldoni, she files a suit for like a split second. It seemed like they realized hey, maybe we shouldn't be kicking people's, let's wait and see. And then it immediately was like, oh no, Justin Baldoni is saying this, and the next day, and then I lost track of it. Then I was following Taylor's commentary, letting me know okay, I see Candace Owens and the right is galvanizing around this to do evil, but I'm not even seeing really anybody on our side defending it either. It seems like everybody's just kicking Blake's back, and so I said, tell me, teach me.
Well, Taylor, do you want to start? Because I feel like you have been so instrumental in the Candace Owens part of this.
No, but so have you. I know we're both more. We can just both go. I mean, how familiar are you with the Amber Heard case?
A little. I didn't follow it religiously, but it seemed to me like something that got twisted into a mutual abuse into making her the villain, even though there was substantial evidence and previous legal decisions that showed that he was abusive.
Yeah. So Amber Heard was abused. There's no such thing as mutual abuse. That's not any sort of concept that is real. There's a victim and an abuser. Amber Heard was abused. No one even debated that. It was this defamation trial back in 2021 over this piece that Amber had written that was ultimately about Johnny, although it didn't even mention him or anything. Anyway, that trial, the reason it's relevant here is that trial sort of ended up being this blueprint for misogynistic hate campaigns online. And obviously there was Gamergate and things like this before then. But what I think the Amber Heard trial sort of did is sort of start to dismantle Me Too by attacking these really high profile, beautiful celebrity, sort of privileged women. Yeah. And I think so the entire internet turned the people involved in that case, Johnny's side, weaponized the internet, really went to YouTube, leveraged this really new media strategy to seed hate and towards Amber online, make it very profitable to hate Amber online, and it turned the entire internet against her basically. So that kind of became this playbook that was then used against so many people, and you see it happening over and over. That YouTuber, did you watch Kat Shanasphere's video?
No, I don't know Kat Shanasphere. Teach me.
Wait, her video is so good. Do you know her?
Aaron, find it. Aaron, pull it up.
Wait, have you seen it?
I don't think I have.
Oh, we have to see this.
Her video was really good because she talks also about Megan Thee Stallion. There's a lot of, so it's mostly privileged white women that are sort of subject to this specific type of hate, and that is because they sort of suffer a specific type of misogyny, but it also plays out against less privileged women in more vicious ways. At Shanasphere, I'm just putting it in.
How do you spell her name? Oh yeah, if you put it in the chat. Yeah,
it's Shanasphere. I might even be saying it wrong. I say it
Anything chat is in the chat, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a good video.
Pull it up.
It's kind of long, but she sort of outlines a lot of these crusades against women and sort of how they became a blueprint.
Oh, I know who this is. Someone mentioned
Claire's first formal acting credit hit theaters. She was Maria in Steven Spielberg.
Oh, I will be watching this. Okay.
It's a good long. We don't have to watch the whole thing now because it's very long, but it's a good if you want to understand kind of misogyny online, it's a good primer on like celebrity women and kind of like how these women are then used. But anyway, so the Amber Heard thing I would say was like, but the genesis of a lot of this. Kat, I feel like I'm talking so much. I mean, you can.
No, I think that's all right. And there are definitely a lot of like it's the same playbook with Amber Heard, and it's also some of the same people who were involved with the Amber Heard trial. Because it's like Johnny Depp's publicist, Melissa Nathan, has since been working for Justin Baldoni, and I think what the public has seen play out is different from what we've seen sort of exposed in the legal filings and what like the lawyers for both sides have brought forward. Because in the public eye, the drama really blew up around the premiere of It Ends With Us 2 summers ago now, I think, or maybe, yeah, like a while ago now. It's been going on for so long.
Really?
And
Why do I feel like this just started?
was it
like, a few
2024 or
months ago?
2023?
Well, it was last
It was
summer.
2024.
Last summer, yeah. But let's
Okay.
explain kind of like what happened, right? So there's this movie, It Ends With Us, that
Yes.
stars Justin and Blake.
Yes, and the movie was based on the book It Ends With Us, which was a Colleen Hoover novel. So it was really big on like book talk. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it was a really popular book among like I would say like people on TikTok in particular. And it was like one of those books that wasn't that good, but it was like almost like a beach read. But also like jarringly, it was about domestic violence, and it took like inspiration from the author's own life. And so that's what the movie was about. And Justin Baldoni, he played the lead character who was the abuser, but he also was the director of the movie, and his production company had gotten the rights to the book years in advance. So he was like the ultimate big boss on the movie set. He was Blake Lively's boss in addition to being her co-star. And there wasn't a lot of like drama or reporting on it during the production of the movie. It mostly blew up around the actual premiere and release of the movie last summer. And that's when there started to be all of this negative social media attention on Blake Lively. And some of that was like during the actual premiere itself, Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively weren't in any pictures together, and she had unfollowed him on Instagram, and a bunch of other people in the cast had unfollowed him on Instagram, which from the surface, like without knowing any information, I think people started to wonder like, did Justin Baldoni do something? Like, why is everyone unfollowing him? Like, what's the story here? And at the time, like, we didn't necessarily know this from the public perspective, but behind the scenes, as would later come out in the court filings, Justin Baldoni's publicists were working to, like, skew that narrative. So what people saw happening online is there was this overwhelming amount of negative scrutiny directed toward Blake Lively. And that ranged from like unrelated stuff to like made up stories and misinformation. And also this narrative started to emerge that Blake Lively had like taken control of the set and like wrestled authority away from Justin Baldoni and tried to like make it her own movie.
And make it cookie cutter and
By the way,
and all that.
she was an executive producer on the movie.
Yes.
So, like
yes.
this idea that like she wrestled control of the movie that she is executive producer of is wild. Right. She has every right to exert control over the movie that she stars in and is executive producer on. So.
Yeah, and it's also like the way that people have insulted her throughout this whole thing has been so gendered and so misogynistic, because it's like characterizations that straight up would never be able to apply to men. Things like calling her a mean girl, which is obviously a very gendered way to characterize someone and is also very infantilizing and very like, oh, she needs to be put in her place. And then also she's being like policed and penalized for being ambitious and for having a role that's a leadership role on a movie set, and for being seen as like taking what Justin Baldoni deserved as like,
that felt
kind
of similar to how they were talking about Olivia Wilde when there was that one movie. Yes, that feels
Don't Worry,
similar.
Darling.
Yes,
Yeah.
that felt similar to me, like a contrived, very internet. We hate this lady, and it was ridiculous to me. Also, disclaimer: her sister is my girl, so I know it's bullshit.
I love that.
It's not just that people were mean to her online. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so what eventually ended up coming out is that she had filed sexual harassment claims against Baldoni during the filming of the movie, and basically filed just a litany of harassment and abuse claims, essentially, like claiming that he had sexually harassed her on set and done all of this really fucked up stuff while filming. And they had reached this agreement. She tried to keep it quiet. She did not want to go public with it. She just got him to sign this agreement that was basically like, hey, you have to stop sexually harassing me. Like, you can't be around with me. And so that, it turns out that was sort of like that, I think that spooked him, and that he was very nervous during the It Ends With Us press tour, like that would come out. So he sort of preemptively decided to smear her in case it came out that, which it ultimately did, that he had sexually harassed her at work. And so fundamentally, like, yes, this is about a smear campaign, but it's also about sexual harassment in the workplace.
And retaliation.
Exactly, and retaliation, and women not being believed. And that's why you're seeing this sort of, why it's like into the Me Too movement of it all, you know, like basically. But so they're filming the movie. Blake is sexually harassed by Justin. They keep it quiet. The movie ends up coming out last summer. Suddenly Justin's smearing Blake, like all this negative stuff comes out about Blake, like it's very negative. Then last December, an article comes out in the New York Times, Jodi Kantor, who wrote about basically what Kat said, that this entire Johnny Depp playbook was being run on Blake. And for a minute, you're right. People were like, oh shit, you're right. Maybe.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, all Justin had to do was be like, no, that's all lies. Like, that's lies. She's a bitch. And it's lies, so don't believe her. She fucking sucks. And like, and employ also this new media strategy where he's gotten all these YouTubers and content creators on board. And leftists as well, because I think a lot of people on the left, like you're saying, like they're not following pop culture news in the same way. And they don't like these women. It's the same thing with Amber Heard, because they're like, well, they're rich, privileged white women. And look, Blake Lively got married on a plantation. Like, he's kind of probably like not exactly, you know, but I think that's what's so dangerous is like, you have to defend those women, even though, yes, she's done a lot of fucked up stuff, and I'm sure she's a spoiled, you know.
She just seemed, honestly, that's the thing. I have noticed that, because I saw a lot of the people that I follow who would typically be defending women seemed like their commentary was all like, no, Blake's bad, or whatever, XYZ, right? And that's really been like what I've seen was basically what seemed like a camp. Like, before I saw the smear campaign for Blake Lively, I felt like the smear campaign for Blake Lively followed like a praise campaign for Justin Baldoni. Like, it was like all of a sudden, like, feminist Justin Baldoni, look at how much he cares so deeply about this movie and yada yada. And I thought that was interesting, because like, I'm like, where did all this praise come from? I watched Jane the Virgin. I'm like, I was there for the peak of your run, and there was no praise for you as like some kind of feminist leader. So that's interesting now that this is a movie about domestic violence, and like we're praising this guy.
Yeah, it's definitely like the perfect victim fallacy over and over again. And it only ever applies toward like the victim in these situations. Because I also think it's interesting that Justin Baldoni, through his production company, and this is like something that I've seen very, very few people talk about, but there have been other like legal disputes and people who have worked with the company before who have spoken negatively about it. And in one of those cases, there was a Black man whose personal story was in development through Justin Baldoni's production company. And he basically said that Justin Baldoni like stole his story from him, but that never comes up. Like the treatment of Black people on his production sets, that never comes up in these same conversations where people are rightfully so criticizing Blake Lively for getting married on a plantation.
Right.
And ultimately, like, there's going to be, in every single one of these cases, some example of bad behavior or bad conduct that people can bring forward as a way to deflect from the initial allegations, which you see happening here, same with Amber Heard, to a grotesque degree, where it's like now with the Taylor Swift stuff, it's like, this is hearsay. It was...
Explain, Kat, what the Taylor Swift stuff
is?
Yes.
Yes. And like, this goes back even further than the most recent development, but from the beginning, when Blake Lively was able to file her initial complaint against Justin Baldoni, they subpoenaed sort of like text messages and filings and stuff from his publicist campaign. And within those like documents, they had talked about how Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are best friends. Like Taylor Swift is the godmother to Blake Lively's children, and they've collaborated on tons of projects. There's even Taylor Swift song in like the soundtrack to It Ends With Us. And Justin Baldoni's team was very aware of how this could complicate their narrative because Taylor Swift is so powerful and has such a huge fandom. So they wrote all the way back before the drama, before the premiere of the movie, like need to like think about how we're going to work with Taylor Swift in this narrative. Fast forward to now, to like the past couple of weeks, Justin Baldoni's lawyer filed an affidavit on the court docket for one of their cases where he said that an anonymous person had reached out to him and claimed that Blake Lively's lawyers had essentially threatened Taylor Swift's lawyers and asked Taylor Swift to put out a statement of support for Blake Lively, and that if she didn't, Blake Lively would leak like 10 years of text messages between her and Taylor Swift.
And there's no evidence of any of this.
No, there's no evidence.
No evidence of any of this. It's coming from a lawyer that is constantly stretching the truth, and it's a single anonymous source, and absolutely no one in Taylor's camp has confirmed it, and actually they've said, what are you talking about?
And it also didn't even happen because Taylor Swift never put out a statement of support for Blake Lively and no text messages were leaked. So it's like this incident that was entered onto the docket.
Just to immediately discount the credibility, like not allow anybody to,
Exactly. And like right away, within 24 hours, which is pretty quick for the judicial system, the judge like struck this from the official docket. And in his response, he warned Justin Baldoni's lawyer that he could be sanctioned if he like continued to misuse the docket. And this is also just kind of an interesting parallel to what happened to Amber Heard, because one of Johnny Depp's lawyers who leaked a ton of stuff to YouTubers in the years before the trial, he was actually like kicked off of the case for doing that in like the years before like the 2022 trial. So there's a kind of a pattern with these cases where the lawyers for some of like these powerful men accused of misconduct will do things that are super shady within the legal system. They'll even get reprimanded or like punished or disciplined for it, but it ultimately doesn't matter because
the public narrative
like eats this stuff up and doesn't care about whether or not it's wrong or right. And the media too. Yeah, like immediately, even though that document was struck, you had all kinds of media outlets running just like quotes from the affidavit without saying like this is just a rumor or like this has no proof or this was not even like this was struck. Instead, they're running headlines that are like Blake Lively threatened Taylor Swift, and you have subreddits and TikTokers and YouTubers like treating this as if it is 100% what happened and running with that narrative.
I think it's so funny like how quietly powerful like YouTubers are in these things. Like every one of these cases you hear and you realize how much what are just like not the mainstream media or whatever, like YouTubers like literally fueling the you see it in the Meg Thee Stallion, you see it like where they have to like sue these people, you see with Cardi B, you see it with so many of these, and it's interesting. It really is, and I don't feel like it gets I don't feel like they put the magnifying glass on that enough for me in the main.
Well, yeah. Kat and my mutual friend, Ofi Doki, who's also a great YouTuber, coined this term, the misogyny slop ecosystem. And it speaks to essentially this network, like unofficial, like network of types of like YouTubers that feed into these campaigns. And so she talks about like body language experts, celebrity gossip channels, I can't remember all of them. Oh my gosh, there's like 8 of them. It's on my channel about it. But it's like this whole, like you're saying, like it's not even just like one YouTuber. It's like these entire groups of YouTubers that have really built, if you go to their channel, like they've really built an entire platform on attacking women and pushing misogynistic hate campaigns.
Yeah, and it's one thing that's always stuck with me from Depp Heard, and I'm sure we'll see a repeat. I think we're already seeing a repeat with this in a lot of ways with Blake Lively. But during the Depp v. Heard trial, Depp's former lawyer, the one who had gotten kicked off the case, he had to testify, and Amber Heard's lawyers asked him, like, did you communicate with YouTubers about this case? And he was like, yes. And he named like 3 of the YouTubers that he had communicated with. And of those 3 YouTubers, they had been getting like audio files, they had been leaked stuff from behind a protective order, and their videos that they created were so influential in shaping like the public narrative around that case. And in addition to that, they each made so much money from covering the case. Like YouTubers were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month during like the Depp Heard trial, which went on for like 6 to 8 weeks. So they profited so much money. A lot of them are still churning out videos to this day. And it's like people will say, oh, well, Blake Lively or Justin Baldoni didn't tell me to make this negative video about Blake Lively, or like I'm not being paid to make this content. And it's like you don't have to be paid directly for there to be this symbiotic relationship, or for you to be able to profit and really sway the public view and like change the outcome of these cases.
Yeah, because they don't need to be paid, because I'm getting this information from you, which allows me to like be the first out to put in advance this. My videos are gonna do numbers. That's how I'm getting paid. You're making that possible.
Exactly.
And like once the narrative, like right now, the entire internet is pro Baldoni, like you will inherently get so many more views on a video that's villainizing a woman. And like they do these outrageous misogynistic thumbnails, so it's just very profitable. Whereas if you try to make content that debunks these narratives or challenges these things, or actually says, hey, by the way, Justin Baldoni's lying here, you get mass reported, you get downranked, you probably get demonetized. Like it's almost impossible. So I think it's like the actual dynamics of these platforms play a big role too.
Yeah, because that is very real. I was just saying this. I was saying this to CJ and saying this to my friends. Every time I make a video that I think that I make any kind of video that in any way, it doesn't matter how like nuanced or thoughtful it still is to the man that's committed the abuse in the situation. Anytime there's a video that in any way lends support to the woman, it does not perform. Like it does not perform. And I'm like, I don't know if it's the algorithm, the audience refusing to engage with it because they know that's the case. They don't want it, you know what I mean, too. But that is always like I actually just put out an episode on Olay and Friends last week on Tory Lanez, and I think that's one of the better episodes I've put out this year, and it's one of the lower performers. And I'm gonna put out an episode on Diddy this weekend too, and I'm expecting the same kind of reception. That's what they does feel that that's how it is.
Yeah. It's also so disheartening to me and so like disturbing that you'll see the rhetoric from these cases inform each other, because it's like when we were talking about mutual abuse earlier, which is not real. It totally distorts like how abuse works. There always has to be a perpetrator and a victim because abuse is based on a power dynamic. So inherently people aren't on equal footing. They can't abuse each other. But that was such a successful rhetorical strategy for Johnny Depp's legal team that now Diddy's legal team is using it against Cassie and saying like, oh, well, she was hitting him too. And it's like, we have the video evidence, and we also understand that like there was no way Cassie would have ever held the power to abuse him back. Right. It's also like it turns self-defense and defending yourself into something that's viewed as a crime.
A co-conspirator. You're a co-defendant. Yeah, this is... Yeah.
It's bad.
Is there any way to? That's the thing. I was having this conversation on Olay and Friends, and I asked like whether or not we think this is getting worse, because I don't know if it's. I'm like, is it worse than it's always been, or is it louder because there is any resistance movement and that makes them that much angrier and that much galvanized? Like, I don't know, but is it? It feels like it's worse though.
I don't think there's a resistance movement, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I think you can count the amount of people that have pushed back on this narrative on your hands.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, and I think it's getting so much worse. I mean, these people are just running rampant through the entire celebrity gossip, not to mention all of the way the right, I mean, the far right seizes on these. Megyn Kelly's speech at CPAC this year was all about Blake Lively and dismantling Me Too. So like it is so intertwined with right-wing politics, like pop culture. And it drives me crazy because I was reading Teddy Schleifer, I can't say his last name, story in the New York Times about like, you know, Democrats and their influencer strategy and all this shit. This is a world that the Democrats completely ignore. Liberals and a lot of progressives completely ignore because they're like, it's celebrity gossip. Like it's serious, and they don't understand that these are huge influential cultural narratives that seep down and affect all of us, and unfortunately misogyny as well, especially misogyny against a privileged, rich, vaguely problematic white woman is not something that's going to be centered in a lot of these spaces for some good reason, right? But unfortunately that leaves this like massive hole, and so
absolutely right.
They dominate, which they have.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's funny that people don't realize that the reason that the right is dominating, and the reason why they've influenced people, so many people to, just regurgitating right wing talking points and right wing thinking without knowing, is they're not doing it by just explicitly political content. They're in fact doing it by tricking people. A lot of where you hear the most hate, all this like slop content, are hip hop journalists, comedians, regular like entertainment manosphere content, male advice, all these other different things, and that's where they're doing it. And you're right, because I find that I realized that. You know what I mean? I realized that the best way to me to really talk about these political issues, or, get people over to these more progressive way of thinking, is to talk about it through these issues, because that's what they're doing. That's what the culture wars is, right? And all this nonsense. But when you do that, there is a contingent on the left that perceives that as you're not doing the work. They don't see how that's that. You know what I mean? They don't process like, oh, these things are connected together, and we'll have a much greater advantage if we insert our, like, if we're exposing people to our way of thinking all constantly, not just during election season or in explicitly political content, but in these things where people are being radicalized to the right, because that's what's happening. It's all the trad wife content, it's all the manosphere content, it's all the like right wing rumble entertainer, the streamers, the fucking streamers, like the reaction content, like it's all there. That's where it is.
100%. And one of the things that has been frustrating.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Kat, but I just wanted to. So you know how you talked about DDG in the Bites video that we just put out?
Yeah.
As of recording this today, he is like been live on Twitch all morning to like 33,000 viewers, participating in the biggest streaming event that's happening right now with Kai Cenat.
Oh, the Streamer University?
Yeah, like he's there. DDG is there.
Oh no.
DDG is there, and he has 33,000. He has 33,000 viewers, and it's because none of those people, most of them children, to be honest, are not plugged into these issues. They probably don't even know that he has a restraining order against his the person he has a baby with for abusing her.
And if they did know, they'd believe his conspiracy. They believe, she's lying. She's just trying to keep me from my child, and blah blah blah. They just eat it up.
Also, not to interrupt, but like. No. I tried to profile DDG too, by the way, and didn't get the story through at the New York Times. And I think it's
I saw you had something similar happen, Kat, where you like did a story and they weren't accepted. I was like, look at how the mainstream journalism will not allow y'all to tell people.
It drives me crazy, because not that I mean, this was before the Halle Berry stuff. This was like several years ago, but like we have to cover these people. We have to report on them critically, because if you don't report on them critically, and there's basically no journalists left to do this. But like you said, like there's no, like even brands will like Google these people and be like, well, they seem Asmongold. Like, I don't know what he seems normal. And it's like, no, you have to like, we need critical reporting on these like major media figures. Cause as you said, like, Olay, like YouTubers, these are major media figures that are shaping public perception.
And that's the problem, is that people refuse to see it as such. I think that, what's funny? I think it's a resistance by mainstream media to see it as such, because it would make them feel irrelevant. But because they don't do that, they're not able to like connect with the times or understand what's happening. Like the fact that it was like news to people after the election that the right has been dominating the fucking media's landscape. I'm like, oh, what? Where have you been? Like, yes, these people are it's all right wing all year round. Like that's what it is, right? So yes, you're absolutely right. Like I see it all the time, and I'll be like, they think it's not relevant. They have this thing where it's interesting, because I see it. They will downplay they downplay to me the influence of these YouTubers and Twitch and like streamers, while overemphasizing the importance of TikTok creators. I've noticed that. Like I feel like I see the Democrats like suddenly trying to like invest in TikTok creators, and I'm like, aren't you seeing that that's not where like the influence is truly at? You know what I mean? Like the TikTok follower to the other platforms in terms of true engagement and how committed they are to your ideology and what it is that you're talking about is vast. But I see that often. They don't want to recognize that, like, it's like how they're suddenly now realizing how influential Hassan is. You know what I mean? It's like I have seen 900,000 articles saying what has been true for years.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, the New York Times, like when I profiled Hassan for the New York Times, another one that I had to fight to get through. They didn't even send a photographer. They wouldn't even send a photographer. They were like, you can write it,
Wow.
just take a screenshot from his stream. So it's just like I think it's, I mean, but I go back to like, I was in the Hilton in the room when Trump won in 2016 with Trump and all the, you know, Trump people with other reporters covering that election. And while a lot of reporters were at the Javits Center, the entire mainstream media was pretty much at the Clinton, you know, Javits Center event. That Hilton event that night was all internet people. It was YouTubers. It was like, you know, like the Mike Cernovich type. It was like posters. There was like forum admins back then, like Redditors, because they've always just like understood the power of the internet. And I feel like it's like Democrats are not even just 8 years behind. They're like, I guess like 2 decades behind.
They don't get it. They really legitimately don't get it. I'm actually I'm confused by how much they don't get it, because I've seen like I swear to God, I've seen these articles come out about, you know, them realizing that they should invest in that kind of media landscape, but the way they think they're supposed to do it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, they don't get it. Like, I'm like, they don't get it. I'm like, they will think, it's funny to me. It's like, I just don't know how they don't see it. Sometimes I've been seeing them sink money into like, oh, we're going to give podcasts and things or whatever, like to TikTok people. I'm like, are you seeing the translation from their TikTok followers to like what it is on YouTube? Like people who will go watch long form thought from them or their interviews. And I'm like, I just feel like they don't study the landscape. Even when I see like what they continue to, even like, for example, like on YouTube, you know this, Taylor, you do this in your content and so do I. You know, you can't just put up the interview by itself. It has to be weaved into a video essay, some larger topic, because people are not going to fucking watch it. Interviews are the least performing kind of content. But they just don't. I feel like they have this thing where they think they're above the platforms, and so they don't think they want to learn the platforms. Like, they don't think that's important to how that you are successful places, and they overemphasize like influence or visibility on other apps to mean influence. Because I'll see people even tell me, now that I don't like spend my time on Twitter, I don't use Twitter anymore, and people like will act like, oh, you're not doing political content, you're not saying. I'm like, I have way more people listen to what I have to say and are watching my content and engaged. I have way more influence over on YouTube and on these places than I do running on Twitter or TikTok. Like,
They like, one of the things that frustrates me so much about both like the Democratic establishment and the mainstream media establishment is even when they finally catch on to the idea that like podcasters have influence, they are not willing to sit there and actually listen to what these people are talking about and saying. And so they end up actually emphasizing the conservative message. And like the Blake Lively case is such a perfect example of this, because I'm like, if you actually sit down and listen to what Andrew Tate says, because all of these people, obviously they're like, Andrew Tate is such a huge problem. Why do young men listen to him? He's so misogynistic. And I'm like, if you actually listen to what he says, you will hear the exact same thing that all of these creators say in defense of Justin Baldoni. Yes. It's the exact same message. It's like feminism. It's like, even if they're not explicitly saying like, I hate feminism, I hate the Me Too movement, it's like, oh, women have power over men. Women can use these allegations to hurt men. Like, men have it hard because women have like too much power. And that's exactly what Andrew Tate is saying. So you have people who claim to be progressives who are like sitting there being like, oh, I don't believe Blake Lively, like I don't believe Amber Heard, or just like not even acknowledging these cases and how important they are, when it's the exact same rhetoric that like put Trump in power. But instead of like combating it, you have people like Gavin Newsom doing the exact same thing and inviting like the exact same people, Steve Bannon, onto his podcast to just do the same type of content they always do.
yeah. No, you're absolutely you're absolutely right. I don't know how we I don't know how we get through to people, because I'll find it funny. I'll see I'm you're right. Like, even when they finally catch on, they just don't get it. Like, and they don't. I've noticed this actually in like the like mainstream media and in like organizer work in real life, because what I'll find is a lot of like movements and like or groups and organizations that I'll like work with and stuff. They will do an entire like thing that they know like depends on public support and thus outreach to the public in terms of like this media thing, but they have this like lack of respect for it. So like they always like media, anything like that's not the work, you know what I mean, or content or whatever it is. And so here's this thing that's fundamental to them like achieving any success, and they don't respect it, so they don't want to learn it, they don't care about it. They will put it off until the very last moment, and they will have this they don't understand, and they're not willing to like understand what is successful and how to like work the media, the social media and all of this. They have this thing that's like, this is important, my issue and my thing is important, so people should just naturally, and what they think the importance of media and platforms is they think that because you have a platform, anything you post will just automatically go viral or be able to like achieve the message. It's like, that's not how it works. It's a whole like, I'm very much have to play this game and understand what this machine is and how it works and how to do it. But there's just an underemphasis on that. And I don't know how to make them get it. Cause I'm like, people just seem more confused, Aaron.
Sorry. I wanted to bring up also that on top of everything that you guys were saying, the Democrats are also failing on the second part that comes after the media influence and outreach, which is the having legislation that translates from that media influence into something that the public thinks they're going to support. Like, the public didn't just support anti-trans bills because they inherently hated trans people overnight. Like, the Republican think tanks put a lot of work into making sure that people distrusted trans people.
Yeah.
Like, the think tanks put a lot of work into distrusting college students on any college campus. They put a lot of work into making sure that anybody that isn't white or a man that's hired in places, they all think they don't belong there, because there was a lot of ideas spread through think tanks and then also through these, manosphere and like influencers that are not actually tapped into issues, and they're just being misogynists, they're being racists, like inherently in their being, without like, I don't know, just like saying the N-word frequently, which is what the bar is for racism. Apparently you just have to say slurs out loud all the time in order to be considered a racist. But like, the Republicans pass all of that legislation, they kick down the door, and Trump signs on these bills as soon as they get in, and they are able to do that like so quickly because they're aggressive and they already have their base's support because they've been like evangelizing all of these issues.
Yeah.
And if the Democrats just pay all of these podcasters and YouTubers to make content, but then they don't follow it up with like a change in their legislation and their policies going forward, it's just going to be a bunch of empty promises and like, oh, I guess I shouldn't listen to any of those people that the Democrats paid to promote them, because they ended up just not doing anything different.
I just want to say, though, it's not even that they're not doing legislation. They're doing legislation, right, that actively dismantles free speech online, specifically. Like, I think what's really, really scary right now, especially on the left, is all of these people being like, the phones are bad, the internet is bad, everybody needs to log off, log off, log off. You know first of all, none of that is true. Okay, you have these left-wing people buying into people like Jonathan Haidt, okay, and who's backed by far-right groups and in working with in line with like the Heritage Foundation and stuff like that. And you see Democrats working in concert with Republicans to push things like the Take It Down Act or the Kids Online Safety Act, these extremely dangerous censorship bills that are used to censor left-wing speech and basically dismantle this left-wing creator ecosystem by deplatforming everyone.
Yeah.
And you have leftists and people online supporting that, and Democrats supporting that actively. I mean, co-sponsoring it, right? Like Blumenthal and Amy Klobuchar. So I think like we really have to fight for free speech, and we have to get rid of this crazy, stupid thing, which I think also is like kind of how people are like, well, I hate Blake Lively because she's a privileged white woman. It's like people are like, well, yeah, we need to like dismantle free speech on the internet because Facebook is bad, YouTube is bad. And it's like, yeah, these are horrible, evil capitalist companies, but you guys want to repeal Section 230. That will dismantle everything. That will get like, now that the right has control of the internet, they're trying to like calcify that control through this really dangerous legislation that I don't see any people talking about on the left. Instead, they're talking about how cell phones are bad. And, oh, guys, I'm minimizing my screen time, which is like, sure, great. You know who's not doing that? Literally anyone on the right.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's literally only you I've seen talk about it. And your Free Fridays.
And like tech and like the Electronic Frontier Foundation and times and like
It's literally like part of Project 2025. It's like once we are in power, we will be able to weaponize this type of legislation to essentially shape the internet in whatever direction we
Yeah.
want. And you have all of these people on the left who think that we can just like get rid of the internet, which I wouldn't even agree with to begin with. But it's also like that's not what's going to happen. Like these things like Take It Down Act, the Republicans who are in power, which is the Trump administration, are not going to actually use any of this legislation in good faith to help anyone. They will use it to take down content that is critical of them. They will use it to like censor the internet. They are using it to do that. Like it's already happening, and they're pushing marginalized people off the platforms, and they're pushing leftists off the platforms, and Democrats are just lining up to like give their approval and full-fledged support to let them do these things, even though
the guys of cracking down on big tech, which then these stupid leftists get on board with.
Yeah.
And
you know
it's
what it is?
meanwhile,
I think it's because they don't understand it. I honestly think what happens is sometimes it feels, I've noticed this, sometimes there are these issues that are a little bit complicated, and then instead of accepting like I don't have the, you know what I mean, mechanics, like I'm like, Taylor, Kat, explain it to me. I honestly, it's a little, you know what I mean, like they don't, because they don't understand it, they jump to like what is an easier perspective, or one that, you know, is going to come up online, which is they're all frustrated because the internet, and especially as Elon Musk and them take over platforms and whatever have you, is so antagonistic to the left. The easier opinion that they can get to is like, you know what I mean, the internet bad, and they don't know about the actor talking about, they don't know about any of this, they don't understand the depths of it, and so they unwittingly recycle, you know what I mean, lead us into this, and they won't realize it until something's like, they'll realize it like how, like when the TikTok ban is happening, when they start realizing like, oh shit, these things are bad.
yeah. And it's like people need to engage with politics, because a lot of people also don't think that they are when they're literally laundering like this conservative rhetoric, because you'll have like people are probably like, they look at the words tech policy and they're like, oh, boring, who wants to read about that? But then meanwhile they're like talking about like, the next generation shouldn't be allowed to use phones, like people under age 18 like shouldn't be allowed to use social media, it's like corrupting their brain. And I'm like, you are literally espousing conservative political extremist rhetoric that like will be used to do things that will affect all of us on a daily basis if they're like continuing to go through, which they are.
And harms the most marginalized kids. We know that. We know that the internet is a lifeline for LGBTQ people, especially trans people. Like literally the Kids Online Safety Act, Marsha Blackburn said we need to pass it to eradicate the influence of transgender on our children. These are people, Jonathan Haidt believes that Instagram is basically turning your kids gay. Like that's who these people are in bed with. And they're so, and it's like, yes, the internet's bad because you're not standing up for freedom of speech. You've allowed these tech oligarchs to take control. And by backing these censorship bills, they are going to seize more control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're right. I think it's unfortunate that the way the ecosystem is set up, especially like even on the internet, not just mainstream media, but like our independent media kind of landscape, it's because of how the algorithms are set up. Everybody feels like they got to talk about what everybody else is talking about in order for it to even get any views. So what happens is there are a few topics that everybody's talking about in the arena, and some just completely get left, because like, I have not heard about this anywhere. It's the same way, actually. I hear leftists constantly. I know it, like AI is bad. You know what I mean? So I know that AI is bad. I don't know AI. It wasn't until my friend Jay Sean, who's an anthropologist, no, an archaeologist. I'm sorry. Look at me messing up the man career in California, and it was him who had to explain to me, like, no. Let me explain to you why it's bad and how it's taking up all this water and all. And the minute he said that, I knew instantly that everybody else does not know that shit. They do not know that shit. Like, they don't. And the problem is like, because the people aren't talking about it, the majority aren't talking about it, and it's not like exciting content, it's boring, or it feels a little bit more tedious or nuanced to explain, people aren't going to cover it because it's not going to get any views, not going to make any money unless everybody else could kind of get galvanized around it, and then these issues just get forgotten or improperly explained. So because all people hear is AI is bad, and they're like, they don't know what that means.
Which is so frustrating too, because not all AI is bad. We use video editing tools that have it. Premiere. If you use Premiere, you're using AI. If you're using literally the platform that we are recording on has AI features integrated.
It does.
So
generate
it's
clips.
not, I think it's good to lower the bar to certain creative tools. but we have to, like you said, we have to consider the environmental impact. And I think generative AI is the big question, and sort of like ask these questions and say, listen, if we want to use generative AI for good, I mean, I very much believe in a better world through technology. If we want to use it for better medical imaging and we have systems in place to check that because it often gives wrong answers, like that's great. But like we need regulation that's thoughtful. And I think people hear AI is bad, and then they sort of like reflexively back a lot of these bills that they believe will crack down on it. But what it really cracks down on is people's freedom of speech and expression. And so I think it's like we just need people paying a little bit more attention to nuance. And if you see Richard Blumenthal and Amy Klobuchar on any bill, it's a bad one.
It reminds me of why people voted for Trump in the first place, only to like realize like 2 months later, oh, I didn't think he would actually do any of this stuff, or like I didn't realize this was what I'm voting for. And it's like the information was there all along, but people create this enormous cognitive dissonance where it's like I see the same type of cognitive dissonance when I'm having a conversation with someone on social media and they're like, we should really get rid of social media. And I'm like, we're literally on it right now. Like how else would we be talking about how else would we be like forming resistance to Trump if we didn't have this like platform to connect with each other? And it's like I really think that like that sort of cognitive dissonance also creates the conditions for someone to not really realize the tangible effects of what they are advocating for or saying or voting for. And it is a bipartisan issue. Like it's a broader media literacy issue. And even if it's like happening on the side of people who aren't voting for Trump, it's still a problem because it's like this is why Democrats have become such effective enablers for the conservative party and why we are unable to form like a legitimate resistance against these issues.
Yeah. Damn. But every time I learn about something new that's like serious, I feel so overwhelmed and stressed. I'm like, damn, how do I do anything about this? Like, what is the way to incorporate this or get people to care? Because that's what it is. It's like you have to strategize and figure out how to get people to care. And I do think sometimes that is deeply downplayed. I feel like by people. People constantly come to me with like hoping that I amplify something on my platform, but it's clear to me that they think that what you do is like, they think that people like you, and so it's just anything you retweet will just do. And I'm like, no, this thing you're doing, like, this isn't right. Like, this isn't the way the messaging, like, we have to think of a thing. Like, I always say that to Aaron. Sometimes I'll get these emails and people will be like, telling me this thing they want me to do, like, do, but they'll be talking about it as though they're like, it'll be like, oh, if you could just, do this. And I'm like, you don't realize, you think you're asking me to like amplify a message, but you're asking me, if you want it to be successful, to do what you want it to do, you're asking me to go to the drawing board now and figure out how to make people interested in how to message this, how to package this, do this like work you won't do because so many people are stuck on like, people should care. So they'll care. And if I have the right person, they're just not listening to it because it's me, as opposed to like, no, it's about how you have to figure out how to tell people these issues. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you got to do. Like, I was just watching, I watch your Free Speech Fridays, Taylor, and I'm like, yeah, Taylor knows that she got to weave these intelligent experts into her commentary and larger topics. She knows she can't just put interview with expert here. And you know what I mean? They're not going to watch it. That's just what I realize. We all realize. And that is an added extra work when you have to figure out like, how do I make it entertaining? Because that's what people don't appreciate. Is like, people are interested in entertainment. They are not, a lot of people, anything that is, you can look and see everything that is like core, outside of a few like commentators or people at the top or whatever, you can look and see that anything that is outright political or educational, numbers are down significantly for those people. Even like the big people, you can see it's a fraction of their views. Like the interest is not there. You have to trick people into learning, into caring about the things. It has to be packaged within their entertainment, within their celebrity gossip, within the things that they're talking, because they feel like they come to your things feeling like they want to have this like shut off. That's why they're streaming these people for hours mindlessly, hearing them in the background and all this, soaking up what is right-wing propaganda, but they don't turn it on like, hey, come, let me watch right-wing propaganda. They turn it on for all these other reasons, right? Not really. Like all those people who are watching Kai Cenat and all them with a streamer university, they're developing these love for these little boys who otherwise are feeding them misogynistic, right-wing, red pill nonsense, and they don't realize that.
Yeah. One thing
what's the difference between like this thumbnail and title is not going to be unpacking misogyny and right-wing theories in the Democrats packaging or whatever. Like there's going to be Blake Lively and Asmongold in the thumbnail. It's not going to be just like the, we had a serious talk today about all these things.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about a lot is how conservatives have been successful over decades at messaging and building culture. And I think about how, like, in a not even a completely pre-internet age, but in decades past, like you look at issues like abortion and the organizing that was done decade over decade to create this population of people who felt so strongly that they were against abortion, they were pro-life. You look at how pro-life itself was like an invention
An
of like
identity.
the Yes. And I feel like that's the kind of work that has to be done on the left. Like there's no quick fix. There's no like Joe Rogan of the left who we can just like give $1 million to and like we're done here. Like we
Right.
solved it. Like I do think that the work of building a resistance culture has to like meet people where they are, and that's also why the internet is such an important tool because I don't think it would be easy to get people to do things like or like necessarily even possible for lots of reasons to get people to do like in-person organizing in the way in decades past. It's like we have to use the internet as an organizing tool because that is where people are, and you have to take like baby steps to get people into like these larger, more organized, more passionate groups. But I feel like in order to begin that process, there has to be a cohesive political vision
Yeah.
of what people on the left want. And I think that is like something that still has to be done too.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. I think I feel this way all the time is that the greatest problem is that, and you hear it all, everybody thinks that the problem is no one can believe in any idea or any approach if it's not an overnight win. The minute it's not like quick or whatever, they think of it as a failure rather than it's like, and I keep saying this, the right did not just win and bulldoze these things overnight. No, they didn't. They have been actively pushing this nonstop. And we don't have the same like we're over it. You stop talking about it. You move on. So often you concede to their framing right up front. Like I like even the fact that the culture wars, like that was something we started talking to the culture. I'm like, why? They're being racist. That is a fucking dog. Like this is all bullshit framing, right? Like, so I think that is the greatest issue is that people aren't willing to say, they aren't willing. I think they don't recognize upfront how these things are intertwined. They don't realize how this content is political. That's why they see it as like, oh, we're all like leftist annoying people, and that's like the funny truth normal people. Like they don't even be thinking of them as the right. When you call them that or whatever, or point out as right wing manosphere kind of thing, they're like, no, X, Y, Z. The amount of people I've had push back on Joe Rogan being a right wing figure, I'm like, okay. So they don't get it or in the first place, and so they don't see the value of like infrastructures that challenge it. And I've realized that even with people that I know or like funders who like recognize that it's doing a lot, but they still don't like care about it. Because I'll be like, I have a influential money person who like will be talking to me about how they want to invest in this and this and the next thing or whatever, but they don't watch it. When I'm like, hey, okay, well, let me tell you why I'd be successful. And I'm like, that's why they don't ever know who would actually be good or what would actually work. Or, they don't watch it. They don't engage in like, how do you produce these things? Like, what are people interested in the internet? And because they don't actually, they don't respect it. They recognize that it has an impact, but they do not respect it. And because they don't respect it, they won't learn it. And they just can't do well at it. Like they can't create a landscape to challenge the right when they neither study the right's landscape in and of itself or like respect how you do it, how you create it, how these platforms operate.
They also have an entire new class of nonprofits and consultant firms that now suck up all the money. I just recently wrote about this company, Chorus, with which Brian Tyler Cohen is involved with, where they're just sucking up all the money. They're getting all the donor money, millions of dollars, whatever. And they don't invest that back in the creators. The creators, not one creator has been paid for their content. Whereas on the right, this right-wing guy that I know who blew up on TikTok, who was a source of mine, just got several $100,000 from Megyn Kelly. I talked to him yesterday. They flew. I was like, where are you recording? Did you move to DC? He was like, no. They flew people to his house in Texas and built him an entire podcast studio. I have a bigger audience than this guy. It doesn't, but they like what he's saying. They like what they want to see him grow. They want to fund it. No one invests in our side of the media ecosystem.
Because they don't. Let me tell you, when me and Aaron first started, like, okay, I want to do Illuminati. This is what I want to do. I want to build my own thing, X, Y, Z. I cannot express to you the constant you don't want to work at CNN, or you got that, or even like, I swear to my God, after my Eric Adams interview, all they were asking me was, are you getting the calls from CNN and all these places? That I'm like, isn't it crazy how I did all this without it and you still don't respect it? I'm like, do you think CNN would have put out my Eric Adams Illuminati production that changed how people feel about him? Do you think that? Do you think any of these places would employ me if I did this? Like, there's a reason why I was called in to the interview. You know what I mean? No one there is going to do it. And so I find that is like, people will talk to me. I've had people and they're like, they want you to do what seems prestigious, like what seems, and I'm like, they don't care. I'm like, these people don't get their news from the news. I be on the news. I don't watch the news. I couldn't even tell you where to find it. Every time I've been on, like, I promise you, there's so many news and mainstream media appearances that I've had that I have never seen on TV, and that no one who's seen it would have seen it if I didn't share it online. And people just they don't respect it. It'll be, I've had people like, they will respect a mainstream media appearance that doesn't have a fraction of the engagement or the reach or the numbers or whatever have you. They talk to you like, they're there, you're doing your little thing, your little YouTube. Like, meanwhile, you're hundreds of thousands of views, millions influencing, like, really people listening to you, and they're like, you don't want to work at MSNBC?
MSNBC, like, if you look at the numbers, the ratings for these cable news shows that are, like, left-leaning, or at least pretend to be left-leaning, like, the numbers are so abysmal compared to the numbers that online streaming and podcasts and YouTube and TikTok are getting. Like, it is incomparable. And also, like, the population for MSNBC skews so old, and it's like, even among the older demographic, Fox News takes the lion's share. But that's the conservative media apparatus is just so much more of a behemoth, because they have all of like the older viewership through those traditional means. But then they've done the work to create the new territory for the younger people to fall into, where it's like, when you are getting on social media, you don't choose, am I going to look at progressive or right-leaning content? You are just going to be served right-leaning content because they monopolized the entire ecosystem before Democrats even knew what was going on.
Yes.
And still to this day, people like on the left prioritize mainstream media over the online media, which is where everybody is. And it's like... It would be, I totally 100 million% support like the idea of growing journalism and building like real journalism, real journalists, but it has to be through online mediums, because that is the only way you can reach people.
And even when they decide to like come to it, they come to it at the last minute to throw it breadcrumbs. That's what I've noticed too. Like even when I saw like even the Democrats like, oh, you want to acknowledge like there is an internet landscape of media you should be going to who have a lot of like political influence. They're coming to them at the 9th hour, like after the campaign is, I feel so frustrated by that so often, how people don't give you the opportunity to really have any kind of impact. It's like, they don't play the gamut, they don't invest in it, they don't go to these places, they don't like, you know what I mean, appreciate that. And it's fascinating, because I'm like, you're on the phone, you're on the internet, you're on these platforms, but it's just like, I see it, and I say, I don't know what more, like, I don't know how to make that, I don't know how they don't see it. So I don't even know how you make that like aware to them. I saw the other day, there was they had something, there was some kind of conference in DC or something with a shit ton of creators, like on a political, like Democrats. And I was like, these are mostly like, it was just all TikTok creators. And I was like, for you to think that TikTok is that is the sole place you need to focus.
There was this guy, Brendan Gaughan, who is a longtime influencer. He actually did one of the first pieces of sponsored content ever on YouTube. I wrote about him in my book. And I talked to him 2 weeks before the election. And I wish that he had like posted this himself on LinkedIn, but he was, he's not a political person at all. But he said the Democrats are so obsessed with short form content, they have no idea how to understand actual fandom. They can only understand short form content because it seems like something they can sort of co-opt and control easily, whereas anything long form makes them nervous. And he predicted basically Trump would win because Trump is doing all of this long form stuff.
Yes.
And I think of it all the time because they continue to prioritize short form creators.
Short form.
Absolutely no... Look at the year. Were you guys there the year that TikTok sponsored VidCon? Do you remember?
Yes.
And those fucking creators had no lines. They had no fandoms.
That's what I'm saying. They don't understand. I'm like, listen, people on TikTok are being served. They're not choosing to see these people. They are passively like following these people as they go through their timeline. They are not invested in them. That's why
Right.
I have seen TikTok creators with millions of followers murder people, are facing trial on prison, and it barely makes a fucking peep. You think I could kill somebody right now and y'all wouldn't, the fucking timeline lose their mind? Like, but the TikTok people be killing people, and it's like, nah, because these people aren't invested in them. They don't leave. You could look. I know this. Like a TikTok million followers is not what 100,000 followers is on YouTube.
Exactly.
You can go see it. They cannot get these people to go leave the platform for them to
That's
watch
pretty much
them.
the direct conversion, actually.
Yes, exactly.
1 million to 100,000.
Yeah,
That's why
like
everyone should subscribe to my YouTube channel.
oh, I'm going to have all that. I'm going to have all of y'all's stuff available, all your socials, because it is ridiculous. I'm like, when people are invested in people, when they will click your fucking video, like they don't know what this is, they are going to click it, choose it, and watch an hour of you talking. That's people who are listening to what it is that you think politically. And it's such a problematic way of thinking, and a lot of people, even like consumers, don't even realize that, because I'll be talking to my friends or other creators, and they'll talk. They're so obsessed with visibility, and they think of hyper visibility on timelines. And they think that's what translates to impact and influence and relevance. They're like, oh, they think these people that are super visible, these like political commentators that they think are commentators that are really visible on the timeline, and then I go look at their numbers on anything, that any video, anything that they're explaining, anything, trying to teach anything, advance anything, and it's not there. It's not there. And yet this is where they decide, when they do decide to put any money, that's where they put it in. Those are the people who get the invites. Like, I thought it was interesting, like during the election and all that, I'm like, who I was seeing they were inviting to the DNC and stuff like that. I was like, what? You know what I mean?
Dances. Like
Yes, doing dances. You're absolutely right. So they're so out of touch, and it's where I don't know if they're gonna get more in touch, because as I see them thinking that they seem to think they figured it out, like, oh shit, right, internet, social media, but they still think, right, short form, all these, like, oh, the creators that are big on TikTok, and unfortunately too, a lot of creators aren't realizing what's needed for different platforms. Like, they go and they try and mimic main things on mainstream media that have died off in relevance there, and they try to like mimic it and invest, like, I need all this money, I need an on stage set, I need all these different things for YouTube and stuff. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You need some box lights, you need a good camera, a good mic, an editor, you know what I mean, some production, some thoughts into how you know where to curate your content, and a teleprompter, and write your script and think, you know. But like, they're like, no, I'm gonna get me a big set. So I don't know what we do.
Yeah, I know. It reminds me of like, and Taylor, we used to talk about this when we were both working in like mainstream media all the time. It's like you see the same kind of like wrong ideas of what audiences want, because it's like whenever I would write about YouTube drama for like mainstream outlets, it was always like, for the most part, can you get these articles to be so short? Can you make them just like incredibly like short word counts, like just explain to us who these people are and that they're in drama? And I'm like, that's not what people who care about this type of content want to read. Like, they actually will sit there for 3 hours and watch a podcast where it's going over every single granular little detail. You have got to know like what audience you're trying to target and what does that audience want. And above all, like, it has to be entertaining to them, or otherwise there is no value. Like, I feel like the Democratic and like mainstream media sort of like consultant class are writing for like statistics on a page instead of like real human beings who, like, you know what people want because it's what like we want as individuals. But for whatever reason, they're constantly doing like conventional wisdom that does not work.
That's exactly it. And they don't give a fuck about YouTube, and that'd be crazy to me, because I'm like, YouTube is the most. I'm like, that's where the influence is. Like, that's where the ideas are take shape. That's what I think. It's like they see the remnants, like the you know what I mean, the vertical, you know, of these ideas on all these other platforms. But I'm like, that's where it started, and that's where they have the entire ecosystem. That's where it absolutely is. And the funny thing is, I'm like, the law knows it. So it's interesting how, like, the right knows it, the government obviously knows it, the legal system knows it. YouTube has been, you know, implicated in all of these things, but somehow the Democratic political establishment doesn't know it, and that's confusing to me. Well, This is great. This is really great. Y'all really, I knew y'all would teach this to me.
No, I love the amount of topics that we were able to get through. It was amazing.
Thanks for having us on here. We need to do more.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely have to have y'all back. This was so much fun. I knew this would be a great pairing.